last time I visited this school, a few years ago, I met a pupil and I asked her how she was enjoying school. And she replied, well, if it was out of 100, I'd give it 1 million. That kind of said it all. How inspirational is that? And that response really struck me. It's the reason I'm back here tonight. That pupil had a spark that inspired me, and it clearly inspired others around her to achieve and to aim high. And if I was an employer, I'd want to hire that girl immediately, because that kind of positive attitude will enthuse everyone around her. And the power of positive thinking can't be underestimated. It can motivate those around you to do and to achieve more. It will carry you through the most difficult times in life, and it will enable you as an individual to go far in whatever you set out to do. It is no accident that the most successful people are positive thinkers, and that most natural leaders are able to project a positive attitude to life. And this school is full of positive thinkers. Now, I would hope that all of you would feel positive about your school, but if you don't, now would be a good time to reflect on your experience here and think carefully about what you've gained from your time here. And why now? Because most of you will be thinking about what to do next. And you need to start preparing for that next phase in your life as soon as you can. It's never too early. Most of you will leave school with some kind of exams under your belt. Some of you will be thinking about doing apprenticeships with employers. That route will give you a strong set of practical skills, and if you choose what kind of apprenticeship you want to follow, you're likely to have a job for life. Some of you will aspire to go to university. The statistics show that university graduates with a degree tend to earn on average 45% more than those without a degree. So it's worthwhile thinking about. Or you could combine the two routes. You could do a higher level apprenticeship, which means a job for part of the week, and then study for the other part of the week. That way you could be earning and getting your qualifications at the same time. And you can follow that combined route at any level. And if you decide to do so at university level, then you would actually be paid to go to university, unlike many students who have to take a loan out. Some of you will not do so well at exams, in which case there are plenty of opportunities to gain qualifications while you work or even much later in life. The options open to you are more varied at any time in the past, but careers are not easily planned in advance. Some people are very lucky and know what they want to do really early on. For most people, that isn't the way things develop, and it certainly didn't for me. When I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went to university, because that's what everyone did. I went to study geography. It was what I loved, and I did well. Doing what you love and what you're good at is generally likely to ensure that you'll be happy and motivated. So if you're going to study after school, it is a good idea to choose the subjects you really enjoy. The same goes for a job. Choose ones that will keep you interested. When I finished my degree, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I applied to Oxford to do a master's degree in forestry. Again, I loved it. At the end of the year, though, none of the employers of forestry were employing women. Too dangerous to work in the woods, apparently, if you're a woman. So I was left wondering what to do next. I decided just to carry on studying. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I did a doctorate. It was environmental science. I spent a lot of time out in the fields. I was lucky. They offered me a scholarship. In order to visit my field site every week, I needed a driving licence, and I couldn't drive. Someone told me if I joined the officers' training corps, I could get my driving licence in 2 weeks, so I did. And I got the driving licence, by which time I was really attracted by all the other things that you could do in the army. In no time at all, I was driving a tank, learning to shoot, learning how to use radios, firing all sorts of weapons, doing incredible adventure training, hiking, climbing, skiing, all sorts of exciting things that you wouldn't normally get to do. What's more, I was getting paid to do what I enjoyed, and I was getting formal qualifications for everything I did. Because it was part-time, I could carry on with my doctoral studies. The Officers Training Corps is part of the Army Reserves, so anyone can join, get paid, still carry on with their jobs. because it's designed to be part-time. And there are lots of different types of Army Reserve units, so I should point out that not every unit offers a chance to give you a driving licence. So if you want to do that, you need to choose your unit very carefully. And these days they do expect some sort of commitment before they put you on a driving course. But looking back, and much more important than the driving licence, which was the reason I joined, were the other things I learned from being in the army. Teamwork, leadership, organisational skills, communication skills, all the skills that employers want you to have when you first go into a job. They're called personal transferable skills, skills that are learned in one environment and they're just transferred to another. And you can get them from doing all sorts of activities. You might be stacking shelves in Tesco's. You're probably working as part of a team, almost certainly having to organise things, and probably communicating with staff and students. If you're performing in a play, or singing in a choir, or playing in a team as a sport, you're learning those skills. But what you need to do is to write down what you do in your spare time and think about what the key skills you're developing are. Those are the things that are going to set you apart when you go for an interview, or when you apply for a job or apply to college, and your teachers will help you with that. Now, I've stayed in the Army Reserves for several decades now, and I've never got bored. I've reached a senior level of full colonel, and as a woman, I've always felt I was treated in exactly the same way as men, that I was trained to the same level, that I was valued for my abilities and my potential. And I've gained qualifications which civilian employers find useful. Do you know, when things are not going well in my civilian job, and they really don't always, it has been my friends in the army and my experiences in the army who have kept me thinking positive. Meanwhile, I did move on to a proper job after I finished my doctorate, but I didn't apply for it. My supervisor went off to America for a few months on a sabbatical, and while she was gone, she was not able to do a piece of consultancy work that had come her way. So on her way out to the airport, she said, "Myszka, these people need they're building a satellite. It's going 800 kilometres up in space. They have no idea what it's measuring, but they're really good physicists. So what they want is somebody who's applied, somebody who understands maps, field trips, the Earth's surface. They want a geographer." So I knew nothing about physics, but I did the piece of work. And you know, at the end of it, I was offered a job. Now, it's often the case that students who do work placements get offered a job while they're on the placement. So if you can, choose a course with a work placement opportunity. All the research shows that students get better jobs more easily, and they do better in their studies because they can relate what they're studying to what they're learning in the workplace. Now, that first proper job at UCL was amazing. It stretched me in so many ways. In no time at all, I was given a team to manage, real responsibility for delivering the project. I had to go and give presentations about the team's work, ended up travelling all over the world. It is important to note at this point that your first job is likely to stretch you in a way that you haven't ever been challenged before, and that you need to be fairly resilient and determined to keep motivated and to keep going. But positive thinking will get you through it, and in the end, you know, it's really worth the effort. The way I got my next job was also a bit unusual. I was thinking of leaving the university to go and work in industry. I was working at a university, but I knew that the average university student didn't necessarily get any of those skills I was talking about, the leadership, the teamwork, the communication skills, and yet that's what the employers wanted. My boss said, "I'm going to make an appointment for you to go and see the chief executive of the university, the top man." He was called the provost. I was really junior at this point. "I want you to explain why you want to leave." So the provost asked me what would make me stay at the university, and I said, "I'd like to run a course on personal transferable skills for all the students across the university. I'll bring in employers to provide some of those case studies and experience." So he told me to go away and design a course and come back to him. I did, and I had to sell the idea to him. He gave me £10,000 to run the course. At the time, I thought that was a huge amount of money. Of course, it's not actually in the context of education. But the course was very successful, and I felt obliged at that point to give something back. So I looked around for opportunities. And the opportunity I saw was to apply to the government, the Department of Education and Employment, for a grant to roll out the course across the entire university and to run a change programme. To change the culture from being purely academic to being more practical and to prepare students for work. The government gave me £1 million. The programme ran for 5 years. It was massively successful. But it was a key turning point in my career. At that point, I had to make a choice. Do I go the straight line route and be a professor? Or do I take this turning in the career which may not take me anywhere? Well, for me, it wasn't a choice. The thought of having a team and a budget and a great project to run with was the choice I went with, and I have never looked back. But it wasn't a traditional route. And by that time, I needed to change. I asked the provost if he'd pay to do an MBA, a part-time business qualification. He said yes. He also said afterwards that no one had asked it before, so he had no precedent, no example to go by, so he just said yes. But if you don't ask, you know you'll never get anything. And after all, they can only say no, in which case you've lost nothing other than a little bit of face. So I would always take the risk and ask. My next job was in the DFE, the ministry that had given me the £1 million. They asked me to join a national team of 6 advisors to spread that model that we had implemented at UCL across all universities in the country. At that stage, I thought I need to set up as a consultant of some sort, a freelance consultant, self-employed. And then I set up a small business because the work kept on coming in. That was a totally new experience. It was really scary. I never felt that I could turn away work in case that was the last piece of work that came in. So there was a temptation actually to work much too hard. Being self-employed has its upsides though. I was able to secure 1 or 2 big clients. I found that I could work for a third of the time for 3 times more money. Had to be very disciplined, that was difficult. But my time was my own to manage. So I had 3 children in that time and really enjoyed working from home. But I missed being in an organisation that was big, so I went back. It is important to know what kind of company you want to work in. For me, it wasn't the small, medium-sized employer or self-employed, it was the big one. That's where I could make change happen. So I went on to be a senior manager at the University of Surrey, Roehampton. That was my first senior job. I was lucky it happened for me at an earlier age than normal. And then I've just moved through similar executive roles at several universities. Every time you move on, you'll find you have more experience. You can do things that once were very challenging, but you can do them much more quickly. And just to finish, I've stayed in the Army Reserves throughout my career. It's always been a value. As I moved to a new job, I always changed my role in the Army. So when I was training in the Army, I'd be training in the university. When I was doing policy development in the Army, I'd be doing policy development in the university. The 2 sides of life have continuously complemented each other. They've also ensured that I keep balance, so when things don't go so well at work, things are going fine in the Army. My advice would be to ensure that you have more going on in your life than just work. It's really important to keep balance. That means having some hobbies. For me, it was the Army Reserve. For you, it could be something completely different. And don't forget family. Having had 3 children has kept me in touch with young people. Frankly, life's tough out there. It's more tough than ever before for pupils leaving school because there's loads of competition for jobs. But believe me when I say that there are opportunities and that they are greater than they've ever been before. What you need to do is take responsibility for spotting the opportunities and really go for them. You need to sell your ideas if you want people to give you an opportunity. You need to be prepared for rejection though. You have to be able to get up and go on to the next opportunity, and you might have to do that again and again. So you do need to develop the mind of a rhinoceros. Now you're more likely to succeed if you differentiate yourself from others by ensuring that you can provide evidence of what skills you have that set you apart from the pack. So above all, don't be afraid of taking that risk. Just make sure it's a calculated risk that you can deliver on. And more than anything else, be positive about whatever you do. That girl was right. This school, if it was out of 100, I'd give it 1 million.